Okay, so thank you again for joining us this morning for this webinar, Top 10 Tips for Autodesk AEC Collection, Design Presentation with Revit. In this webinar, Architectural Technologist and BIM Manager Jonathan Reinhardt is with us today. We'll focus on using Revit to present your architectural designs to clients. Just to give you a bit of background about us, CADpoint is based in Crowthorne, Berkshire, and is a gold partner for Autodesk software. We have a team of experts ready to assist you in all aspects of design. We are also partners with some of the most trusted hardware manufacturers in the industry, including HP, NVIDIA, etc. As well as software, our team can also offer introductory training for new customers and advanced courses for experienced users to help you get more from your software. So without further ado, I'll pass you on to Jonathan.
Thank you for that intro. BIM Manager as an architectural technologist, and I also hold a master's degree in BIM management and a bachelor's degree in architectural technology. What we're going to cover today are top 10 tips contained in this demonstration style presentation, and we're going to range from things such as view templates, object materials, lighting and shadows, color schemes, placing different objects, using your crop regions, placing schedules, depth queuing, change your object line styles, and using tag information in your drawings as well. At the end then we'll leave a couple of minutes for questions, and happy to answer anything that I can today. If you don't have a company template set up already in Revit, it's good to start with the metric architectural template that comes pre-installed with Revit. Once you begin modeling up your building, you then want to start placing it on sheets and making it graphically, I suppose, look presentable and, you know, look good to clients or stakeholders of the project or whoever you're trying to communicate your design to. It's important that it looks good as well as is designed well. So the communication of that and the presentation of your drawings and how they're graphically represented is very important in order to get across the idea of the quality of your design and exactly what you're trying to build or what you're trying to describe to the client is your intended design for that particular project. I like to start modeling my project before I start placing on sheets. I like to start in a floor plan. In this case, in this template, it's just called level 1 for now, but we will rename that later. I basically start in a floor plan and just start laying out my walls. This is assuming that it's a new building, and in this example, that's what we're going to focus on, is that it's a new building on an existing site. There is an adjacent building or a building on the site already that we're going to demolish, and we'll control that as well. So simply just start placing your objects. I like to use the Revit library, and these can present themselves on sheets quite well. That's why I like to use them. I always use the Revit library as a basis, and then I go in and I edit the Revit families if I need to, or in fact create my own families. One example of editing a Revit family that comes installed with Revit itself already is one of these doors, for example. I like using this door, but I don't like the internal trim that comes on the glazing. It just, for my particular style of architecture, I don't feel it's very contemporary. So I can simply just go into that family, edit family, and just delete those elements within that particular family and load it back into the project. So it's good to use that Revit object as a basis for your design and your modeling objects as well. What I like to do with my drawing sheets, or sorry, my drawing floor plans before I place them on sheets, is I duplicate each floor plan that I'm going to be modeling on. The reason for this is, for example, we've level 1 here. Level 1 will get placed on the sheet, and then level 1 drafting is the one where all the rough kind of work happens. So all of our dimensions and notations will actually just go into level 1, and then having the duplication of that just allows you to kind of be able to explore, you know, different types of settings and stuff like that. But the level 1 is the one that will actually be placed on a sheet itself. In order to have some drawings to present, we're going to have to place a sheet or import either our company sheet, or in this case, what we're using here is actually the Autodesk pre-installed Revit template or sheet template that comes installed. What I like to do with companies and what I've done in the past is I actually take this particular sheet and I edit it to suit the company's branding. So that's colors, logos, and different types of parameters such as the name, the project name, and the sheet number and scale. All of that is pre-installed in this. So I like to start with this and then just manipulate that around. So simply to place something on a sheet or to present something on a sheet, you just drag your floor plan that you're going to place onto that sheet, and that simply just populates onto your sheet. So it comes out very easily. And that's, I suppose, that's step one of presenting your drawings, is placing something onto a sheet very easily. The next thing we're going to do is we're actually just going to go into that sheet, and I'm just going to make it a bit more contemporary looking. I'm just going to delete some of the sidelines, make it look a little less technical and a bit more presentable. And what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to replace the current logo in there. I'm just going to put in a generic architectural logo, for example. So I'm just going to delete these between lines, but I'm actually going to leave in the client name and project name. And you're free to do this as well. You can actually take one of these templates and move the objects around just by editing the family of that particular drawing sheet as well. So just go and delete this image and just change this to, for example, it could be your own company web address. Change this, for example, and then we're just going to bring in a different type of logo as well. So just using the text tool very easily, just create your own logo. You can also bring in your own logo as an image, which typically most architectural businesses will be. In this case, we've just placed a generic logo using, we're just going to select a different type of text and increase the text size just so it looks, I suppose, a bit more like a brand or a logo, just for the purpose of this demonstration. So you can just change the color of that. You can suit your own company colors as well, or your own company text, depending how your logo or your branding is set up as well. So we're just going to delete a couple more lines just on this sheet, just as a personal preference. That's just, for me, it just gives a bit more of a contemporary look just to the style. You know, maybe it represents your architecture, if you're traditional or contemporary. You know, your branding may match that, and you can communicate that using your drawing sheets as well. So we just loaded that into the project and just overwrite the existing one, and you can see it replaces the existing one as well. And you can reuse this for any of your later projects now as well. You don't have to redo the complete drawing template. So from my experience of working for architects and in architectural practices, I understand that windows in particular, and I suppose the fenestration and how the line work actually represents on the sheet is very important. So if, like me, you've worked in contemporary practices, you like a simple kind of maybe a rectilinear type window, and you like the lines of it to be quite simple. So I've actually used an out of the box one here, and it's called the M fixed window. And it's a very represents itself very nicely. You can see it only has a couple of lines in it, and you're able to use that straight out of the box to save you creating one from your own family. And you can just go in and edit the size of that for your different types of windows as well. So that will give you a fairly nice represented window on both your elevation sheets and both on your 2D floor plans as well, and even in the 3D floor plans, which we will see eventually towards the end. The edit profile for selecting a wall in an elevation view is a very useful tool. In fact, in a 3D view with an elevation facing direction here is what we've done. And what we're actually showing here is that you're able to edit the profile of a wall to the shape that you want to work for you. And this is actually represented in 3D space, in 2D space, in everything. And what we're actually going to do, we're going to use a curtain wall in between that wall space. The reason for that is because curtain walls are very useful and very quick to draw, and graphically they look quite good as well. So the pre-installed curtain wall with this particular architectural template, it comes with all of the mullions and all of the surrounding frame on it as well, and we can just go in and place that in our wall and then just edit it and suit it to meet our wall as well. Revit also gives you the option for jumping between different visual styles, and these are only view specific, and you can see this at the bottom of your Revit user interface, just the second kind of blue box in there from the scale bar on the bottom left. And basically you've got shaded, consistent colors, and you've got realistic. So realistic will show you what we can see here as the blockwork, the actual image or the render image of the blockwork. and shaded will just show you a particular color that you have set in the particular materials properties of that. So here we have a wall build up, for example, and we can see the structure of that wall is actually made up of concrete masonry units. And if we just go to the appearance tab, that is where it's pulling that blockwork wall from there in between as well. So just to be aware of that, if you're using different visual styles and if you're using realistic, you will change that in the appearance tab. If you jump to appearance or to shaded appearance, this will select what you have set in your properties under your shaded colors for that particular material object as well. Let's take this roof, for example. We want to change the appearance of that roof. We want to actually apply a real material to the outside of it. So we want a standing seam zinc roof for this particular building design. So we're just going to go into the materials of the roof and change the structure of it. So we're just going to search for a seam. Couldn't find a seamed roof. So what we're going to do, we're actually going to create a new material. So just go down to the bottom of your material screen, just go create new material, right click and just rename it to seamed roof or whatever your particular material will be. You will then search in the Revit object material library for this. You'll just go down to create new material, and beside that go into the appearance library and just type in seams. There are literally thousands of different types of seamed roofs and different types of roof types, tiled and every type of wall and brick material as well. So we're just going to select one, and this particular material you just select on the end. You just replace asset in library. And what it does, it sends that to the new material you just created. And then we're just going to set on the surface pattern of this, I'm just going to set it to, for the shaded view, what I want is I want the 400 mil lines running across the roof as if they're the seams, the same way you would have them represented in the CAD environment. So I'm just going to create a new fill pattern. So what we're going to do, we're just going to rotate this to 90 degrees and just change it to 400 mil dimension between each of the seams. The reason for that is typically a seamed roof is 400 mil from seam to seam or center to center. Just click OK on that, just click apply on that, and then once we go back into our view, hit apply, and that will apply across all of the particular roofs where that particular roof exists anyway, and that will allow us to set it up in elevation drawings as well. Revit allows us to tidy up our wall joins in several different ways. So as this is just a design drawing, we're not going to get too bogged down in terms of the wall penetration into the ground and the foundation level and stuff like that. We're just going to leave it at above ground level for the moment, as this is just initial concept design. But there are a number of tools, so you can simply, in section view, you can align your wall with the top of the roof or the bottom of the floor, whatever it may be. But you can also use something called attach to roof, or attach to top base. You can simply select your wall and just select it and hit attach to top base, and it tidies it up in complete 3D environment and 2D environment as well. So it's a nice way to tidy up or graphically tidy up your walls. With your external walls, what I like to do is bring down my walls to the same level as the bottom of the floor, and just graphically, I suppose initially this makes your drawings look a lot more, I suppose, cleaner just before the foundation has been designed by the structural engineer. This is, maybe the early stage of a project. I like to bring them down just in line with the particular bottom level of the floor plan, and then we can actually color in the solid element of all those walls and the floors, and we can have them all looking nice and consistent as well. And we'll do that at the end of this. So you can actually select any object, and in a coarse view, you can select what the cut color of it is. So in this case, we've chosen gray. At the end of this, we'll choose it to be black. Just some people like black, some people like gray. But you could also choose your own branding colors for your company, for example, put in the RGB color of your actual logo, and have a nice kind of consistent look with your particular drawings as well, so they all match up nice and tidy. And you just do it per type of element, and that's just go in, edit coarse scale, and just change the colors to make sure they align. To place your elevations on your sheet the same way you would with a floor plan, you can simply drag them as well from your browser on the left. So we've got our east elevation. We'll pull our north elevation on as well, south and west, and just placing them on sheets. And you can see the scale comes in underneath them as well, underneath the elevation tag. You can change the elevation tag and the text type as well to maybe suit your own preferred branding or own colors as well. And you can pull back these lines that they actually come in by default, but you can pull them back, or you can actually turn them off in the actual elevation tag as well. So we're just placing them on sheets. We will tidy these up towards the end of this demonstration as well, just to show you how to make them a bit better looking. But what I like to do is to get my items or my views onto sheets, just so I know, okay, we're this far away from having the drawings finished, or we know exactly where our drawings are because they're all on sheets, even if they aren't from a graphical point of view. And we will add a lot more information and detail to what we have seen here on the screen as well. In a roof plan view of a building, what I like to do is actually turn on just the wireframe view for a moment and use the annotation detail line tool. So these lines only represent in this particular view, and I actually select the walls beneath with a hidden line. So this is a dashed line. It's currently showing green. We'll change that to black in a moment. And then once we go back into the hidden lines view, all you will see is the roof outline, as we will see, and then you will see the actual outline of the internal floor plan. So some people or some designers like to have their drawings represented in this way, and this is just the way that you might do it, is by selecting using that annotation detail line. And these only exist in this particular 2D view. They don't exist, or they don't change anything within your 3D environment at all. What we're going to do now is just place some 3D views on sheets. So we're actually going to cut the floor plan using the section box and place that on a sheet. And then we're going to also just cut the roof plan in 3D just to show it on top of the actual floor plan. And it looks like a nice kind of stacked 3D view, both of the floor plan and 3D of the roof as well. So just selecting the default 3D view, all we're going to do is turn on the section box in your properties tab and just manipulate the edges of that just to hide anything outside of that. But we can in fact leave it on in case you have objects externally, you know, such as driveways or car layouts or car parking layouts or trees or planting or anything like that as well. So we're just going to duplicate this, and we're going to create this just as a ground floor 3D, because your default 3D view is never overwritable, just so you know. And we're going to duplicate that for that reason. Call it the ground floor 3D, and we're just going to turn it to a coarse view just so we just see the thickness of that particular wall. Go down to our sheet. We're just going to rename this sheet, and we're just going to call this our 3D floor plans or 3D views. And then we're simply, the same way we place a floor plan onto a sheet, all we're going to do is just drag that floor plan onto the sheet. And the scale it comes in at, we're just going to leave it at that particular scale. We will hide some of the objects, such as the level lines that you see there. But what we're going to do now, we're actually going to duplicate this, and we're going to rename this as roof 3D. So all we're going to do now is turn back on our section box. And you will notice the section box, we are using temporary hide down the bottom, which is a light bulb down the bottom. Once you hide something using EH or element hide, just by turning on the light bulb, it will actually show what's temporarily hidden, and it's a very useful tool. So I'm just going to turn off that, and so we don't see the section box, but the section box is actually active. And then we're just going to place this on our sheet over our 3D view. So then you can see that a blue dashed line appears when your building is actually aligned with the one below it, or your drawing is aligned with the one below it. So we know they're perfectly stacked on top of each other. So what we're going to do, we just selected that level and just typed in EH to hide that. And then we're just going to turn off, for these 3D views, we don't need a title on them. We just want them on a sheet, as I suppose, as a concept kind of view. We don't need any of the scale or the name information. They're kind of self-explanatory. What is a good way to tidy up your actual sheets with your plans on them is using the crop region. So I like to use the crop region, and you turn it on and off in the bottom of your user interface beside the scale tab. And you simply just drag it in as if it's a rectilinear box, pulling in the sides, but you can also edit the crop of that at particular angles. So we're going to follow the boundary of this particular site, and we're just going to crop it by sketching those lines, and all it's doing is creating a viewport of that particular view. So essentially it is a viewport, and we can hide that using EH, so it hides it, but it still exists as a crop region. You just cannot see where it's cutting. One of the most powerful tools in Revit for controlling your graphic display is using something called view templates. So these view templates are found in the left-hand side in the properties tab of that particular view. And in there you have under identity data called view template. So there are pre-installed view templates, and these particular templates have different types of settings in terms of the graphical representation of your drawings. You can then apply these different view templates to your different views, and the idea with this is that if you've got one created, for example, for architectural elevation, then you just select all of the elevations, and then all of the elevations will have the same graphical properties applied. View templates can be applied to any type of drawing elements, such as a floor plan or a 3D view, as we see here. So this particular example shows a architectural presentation, a 3D view. So we're just going into the graphic display options, which are very powerful to be able to control, again, how your graphics appear across anywhere that template has been applied. So in this case, we're just turning on the shadows and just manipulating some of the different settings that will apply and replicate across that. So you can turn it on to hidden line if you want. That just gives you kind of a black and white effect. Some designers may prefer that. What I like to do with the shadows is I turn down the shadows to quite low and turn up the ambient light so that the shadows aren't overpowering, depending on the type of drawing. Obviously, if you want to accurately represent sun shading or location of your project, you can go in and actually set, as long as you have set the correct coordinates of your project, you can go in and set accurate shadow studies from that particular project as well. To further enhance your drawing sheets, you can also add in just, I suppose, 2D lines on that particular sheet as well. For this example, where we've put the cut 3D floor plans, what I'm actually going to do is just add in something called a detail line from your annotation tab, and this only exists on this particular sheet in this view. And what it just shows, I suppose, the extrusion of the roof over the floor plan. And these are just basic 2D lines. There's nothing nothing complex here whatsoever. Just copying and replicating those 2D lines across from the different corners of your building. And I suppose it just reads a bit better depending on what your preference or intention with the actual drawing is as well. Placing north points on your drawing can be found in the annotation tab using the symbols tool. So you can simply just import a north point. This particular one is a fairly plain north point. So what we actually want to do is go in and edit the family of that particular north point. So we're just going to stretch up the north point line, and we're just going to add in some text just so it reads as north. And you can design, I know some firms like to have their own type of north point as it suits, again, their branding and their overall drawing style. So you can simply just go in and edit text, or if you had an image of a north point or whatever way you prefer to use it, you can change the size of your text and simply just style your text as well, the same way you would in any sort of Revit family. And then you just load that into your project and just overwrite the previous one. So again, this uses the Revit library as its basis. So you're using the proprietary library and you're just editing it to suit your own type of branding or style of drawing. Placing room tags using the RM keyboard shortcut can be found in your architecture tab as well. These can also make your drawings look a lot more presentable in terms of you can show the floor area, the names of rooms, and these are sensitive to walls moving or any sort of new elements being added into the room as well. So if, for example, you move a wall, the floor area of that room will then update. If you change the name of that room, that will then also update. You can edit these particular families. This particular room tag, you just go in, edit family, and you can select the different types of properties that you want to appear in that room tag. So that could be floor finish, it could be the perimeter, it could be ceiling finish, or in this case, all we're going to do, we're just going to tidy up the graphic presentation of it, just so the number sits over and the floor area sits beneath the room name. But you can in fact change the color of this text, the type of text, again, to match your branding or to match your company standards. And you just then overwrite that into your project and simply just select the tags that you want to replace, and all of these floor areas are then presented on your drawing. To simply change the name of the room, just click into where it says room. By default, room appears, and you can just type in the different names of rooms. So whether that's bedroom, bathroom, kitchen, or open plan kitchen, living, dining, place that in there, and this information can then be retrieved later in something called a room schedule, which we'll look at shortly. Using the department parameter within a room tag allows you to then categorize all of your rooms into a similar category that they relate to. So for example, all bedrooms are going to maybe be in a bedroom category, and then all your living areas, maybe in a living category, or all of maybe your ancillary rooms, such as your plant room, your utility room, and any sort of ancillary works can be all on the same departments tag. And the reason for this, it allows you to then color your floor plan, which we'll also show shortly, color your floor plan in relation to just the department that they apply to. So department is a category of a set of rooms. To place a 3D view within a room or within your project, simply just go to your View tab, select 3D View, and drop down where it says Camera, and place where you want the camera to point from first, and then where you want to point towards. And immediately your 3D view will jump up, and you can start to edit the different graphics of this particular room in terms of the colors, and even change the materials as well, and the different camera angles, and even send it for rendering, which we'll see shortly as well. Add a different material to your floor, for example, simply select the floor, open up the type, edit the structure. In this case, we've applied a oak flooring. So you can then go back in, see how that appears in your particular image that you're trying to create. Go back in, and we're going to edit and just add in a hatch on the floor to make it a bit more conceptual looking, and just add in a wooden floor hatch. We're going to go into the model settings and just choose the 150mm horizontal, just hit apply to that. We can change the color of those particular lines if we want, and to the actual background of the wood flooring as well, depending what type of settings you prefer. And this is just on a shaded view. It's not a realistic view just yet. Another feature in the graphic display options is something called depth queuing. So what this allows you to do is, in fact, it will automatically set a fade effect and thin out the lines that are actually further away from the very front of your drawing. In this case, it's faded out the trees in the background of this elevation, and that will be applied across the entire view template for architectural presentation elevation. The color by department feature can now be used in our floor plan because we've set this in our room tag. So we just go into our floor plan, selecting it, go into your color scheme on the left hand side in the properties of that view tab, and it brings up a couple of different options. So this allows you to color it by room name, so that'll be an individual color for every independent room, and it automatically adds a color each time you add a room, so it's completely automated. But we can actually do this by department as well if you prefer to show just the categories of your particular rooms. So we can go back into color scheme and just go to department. So we've only 4 departments. I think we've got sleeping area, living area, and transitional space for your corridors and stuff like that as well. So you can just hit apply on that, and that will then apply that to that particular floor plan as well. The next item we're going to cover is something called a multi-category tag. So multi-category tag can be used in almost any view type that's a 3D view or a 2D floor plan. So what it allows you to do is actually capture specification, or in this case comments information, that are attached to a 3D element or a BIM object in your particular project. So in this case we're choosing a roof, and we're just going to type in the finish. So assuming this is just maybe a design set of drawings and you want to say what the style or the finish of the roof is. So we're just going to type in seamed zinc roofing, and we're just going to apply that to that roof type. So wherever that roof exists, in this case, in this instance, it's just that particular roof. We're just going to apply a multi-category tag. So for a multi-category tag in a 3D view, you need to lock your 3D view. So multi-category tag are found in the annotation library of the pre-installed Revit library. Just I like to organize it by details because I see the name. I open up multi-category tag, just press open on that, and then we can in fact edit the family of that. So once we load it in, you can see a question mark hovers over the object that we've highlighted. That's because it can't find any information that it can actually associate with the tag. So what we're going to do is now go in and edit that multi-category tag. So you only need to create this multi-category tag once. You can use it in all of your templates then. So what we want to do is capture the comments information that have been applied to that particular roof. So anywhere it finds comments on any object, whether it's a window, a wall, or a roof, it will automatically populate the comments parameter into that particular tag. So if I tag that particular roof in an elevation or in a plan view, it will still come up with the same notation that's been put into that comments parameter. So I'm just going to overwrite that, bring it in, and you can see my note from my comments tab actually appears there in the right hand side, and this again can be replicated in your plans and elevation views for the exact same information. The same can be applied to windows or any types of objects, so we can call up the window types. You know, it could be a planning drawing and you want to show just what the basic finishes are rather than a full specification. You can simply just type in your note into comments. And in this case, actually, we're going to apply this to the type parameters. So I'm just going to delete this one from the comments tab, and we're going to put it into actually our type parameters, because you can see when you hover over one window, that note will only appear for that instance of that window because it's only in the instance parameter on the left hand side. So in fact, we're just going to cut this, edit type, and apply it to the type parameters. Therefore, wherever that window is placed around the entire project, then the same note will appear. So if I choose any of those windows, then the same note will appear. So what we actually have to do here is go in and create another multi-category tag, but just for type comments. So what we can do, we can actually use the same one that we already created, and we can edit the label type on that, add type comments. So you can use the same one, and wherever it finds either comments or type comments, it will automatically populate with that notation. So you can see now we've got aluclad triple glazed windows have been placed in their notation. Leveraging the building information in your model is also very powerful. So what we're going to do, we're going to create a room schedule and place it on one of our sheets. So we're just going to capture all of the floor areas and the room names, and in fact the department types that we captured earlier on or inputted earlier on as well. And we're just going to place them into a table, also known as a schedule, and we're just going to place this on a sheet. Therefore, when you're presenting this to a client, or even if it's being given to a builder for a preliminary cost, they'll have an idea of the floor areas or the size of the actual property that you're going to place. So we just select the different types of parameters that we want to populate into that. And this does actually show up some of the maybe unplaced rooms, and you can just tidy it up and delete those unplaced rooms. They don't exist, so it's okay. So what we do is the same way we place a drawing is simply just drag that schedule onto a drawing sheet, place it on your drawing sheet, and you can in fact change the text size, and you can also just change the width of those particular columns as well. What we can do now is also add a color fill legend to our sheet that relates to the departments that we've already colored our particular floor plan with. So simply just go into your floor plan and then just go to your view tab or your annotation tab, and simply just click into your floor plan, and you'll see on the right hand side under color fill where you see color fill legend. You can drop that down from the menu. It automatically pulls up the department one because it knows it's that floor plan, and the colors are automatically populated. And as you add departments or as you move departments or remove departments, that will automatically populate as well. As you start to progress your drawing and your design, you can start to play it with more information such as components or furniture as well in your pre-installed library. Just going in, for example, placing beds, go into your bed category and choose which bed you want to place. And you can then just load in that bed simply by clicking open on the particular chosen bed. I particularly like this one, number 3. Just click open, and then you can place that in any of your rooms. And the same, you can see we've already populated with couches and chairs as well. And those elements will actually align to the wall. You'll see that the wall will actually highlight in blue, and you can start to just place multiple beds around the place as well. And I suppose this is just a visual thing as well. It's not at later design or detail stage whatsoever. It's just a graphical thing to make your building, I suppose, look a bit more realistic and a bit more livable as well for your client. As you tidy up your drawings, you will find yourself maybe using the crop region per each view, and this is engaged just by double clicking into a view and just going down to the bottom left of your toolbar beside the scale bar and just turning on your crop region visible. So you just select that option and you can simply select it, the actual box. In this case, we've turned on temporary hidden items, which is also very useful. And you can just bring up your crop box just to hide anything below that. It's very similar to a viewport you may be familiar with from CAD type softwares as well. To change the appearance of objects across the entire project, so i.e. not just view specific, we can go into object styles under the manage tab. In this case, we're just looking for the property lines, which is this particular black line that outlines the site, and we just want to change it to red, show it as a planning boundary, and just change it to a solid line. It's solid, press apply, and we can in fact change the different thickness of that line as well. and these lines are controlled from within your line weights as well. So set it to a thickness of number 6, and that is a thickness of number 6 rather than a millimeter or 0.millimeter, but you can in fact change those different options as well within the image settings as well. And we just want to change that property line to something slightly thicker than it is already shown here as well. So change it to a 12, hit apply, and you can see it updates everywhere in the Using the spot elevation tag, we can start to place some levels on our flat roofs, and you can see it automatically populates with the actual level. So if the roof moves, then that level will change, and we can change the different settings of that as well, even from the symbol and the size of the text. And we can then place it on our site. We can see we actually have a sloping site in our topography, and you can see the elevation dimension of that is actually changing as you move it around. And you can place a couple of those around the site, depending on if you have a change in levels or if you need to demonstrate, in fact, your change in levels. We can see the lower end of the site towards the north end, and just towards the south side of the building, we've got minus 150 of a floor, finished ground level below floor. What we can also do then is start to add in some more of our multi-category tags. So these tags that are already created, just place them in your elevations and start to add a bit more detail to your elevations as well. Now that your design is a bit further progressed, you've got materials applied, we can now send it our 3D views for cloud rendering within inside the Revit user interface. So simply just go to your View tab and select Render View. And we just go to render in cloud. We can render in product if we wish, and we can change the settings accordingly as well, but I find render in cloud is a lot quicker. So we just choose the particular 3D view that we actually want to send up to the cloud. So in this case, I know it's 3D1, and the output, if we choose a still image, obviously it's a still image, there are a couple of different options. Render quality final, and just I set it to advanced, and we're just going to send that to the cloud. So a couple of minutes later, we can then access this in our cloud rendering by logging in, and we can even do some sort of post-processing on this as well. So changing the different color settings, such as the exposure, the saturation, and different types of filters that you can apply to it as well. And you can just change the contrast and brightness and darkness on these as well. And then just hitting those settings and then pressing apply will automatically update that image. We can then download that file and immediately import that into our Revit file as well. What we're also going to do is just add a wall schedule to our sheet as well, just to kind of give the clients, or again, if it's a contractor or a builder you're giving this information to, just to give them a bit more information about exactly what they're looking at. So we just want to capture the area of all of the walls. So for a quick kind of pricing, you know, or back of a napkin, they're able to take these kind of options, the area of the wall, and we can tell them what the wall build-up, if it's traditional, you know, 350 mil cavity or whatever the type of wall build-up, and then they're able to quantify or apply a particular type of cost to that as well if they want. While you can create, as we know, rendered images in the product, you can also create rendered fly-throughs as well. But a quicker way, maybe if you're showing a client on screen, you can actually, from a 3D view and added in this latest release of Revit, you can use something called the fly through the building. So all you can do is take any 3D view, whether it's realistic or whether it's a shaded view or just a black and white hidden line view. You can in fact take that just on the right hand side through a 3D view and the little paper airplane symbol and move around your building and present it to a client. So there are a couple of different options. You can change the materials as well in here, and obviously they will reflect throughout your 3D model as well, or throughout your 3D environment, or in fact you can just show it as a shaded view just to show maybe how the space will be represented, and you can change the entire aspect or the entire size of this particular view as well. If your project eventually makes it from design stage into your construction detailing stage, you can in fact construction detail very well in Revit, and it's very powerful. The reason for that is because it captures obviously anything you've created in a 3D view, whether that's a wall buildup or whether that's a gutter or a fascia or any type of that information. So what we see here is all 3D information, but what we can actually do is use the annotation lines to start to draw in maybe a bit finer type of detail that you're not going to necessarily model in your full BIM or Revit model. So you can just use 2D lines, and you can start to use something called masking regions, and this will in fact hide out everything that you create this shape or this particular detail over as well. So we're just going to create the top of a wall plate here and apply it as a blank kind of solid. And we're just going to create some 2D lines just to represent, I suppose, the wall plate in this particular building. And you can change the hatch types and everything, and even add in further type of insulation information, whether you've got type of membranes or air tightness seals, or any type of detail. Even if there's a bolt, for example, that you want to represent, that can all be done in 2D work. And for that reason, you can still, you can still focus on the 3D modeling elements, and then at the end of it, using your 2D detailing tools, still add in that important information at the construction stage as well. Using your drawings, you can then start to add in your dimensions on your floor plan on your sheet. So dimensions only exist in the floor plan that you place them. They don't exist in your modeling environment unless you add them to a 3D view. But these are only view specific, so they won't appear in another floor plan if you've only placed them in this particular one. So very simply, it intelligently knows the edge of the wall, and you can just select the end of the wall, and using your tab key, it will either go to the center line or to the edge of the wall there as well. The very fun thing I want to cover here today is something called phasing. So phasing allows you to capture different stages of a project. So for example, you may have an existing building on a site that is going to be removed. In this case, that's what we're going to demonstrate here. So we're just going to go into a site plan, and we're actually going to just model in an existing building on this site, assuming it's there before this building is constructed. So we're just going to place some walls, but we're actually going to use phasing, and we're just going to apply the existing phase. And then what we're going to do is we're going to change that phase for demolition, or when they're being removed, as the new construction phase. And what this allows you to do, it allows you to create a completely separate demolition drawing, and it automatically populates depending on what phase you have set to that particular view. So phases are relevant to different elements that you select, but you can change them per view as well. So you can create a demolition only drawing that can be perhaps for the client or even for the contractor to know what is being removed from a site. Thank you very much, and I'm now happy to take any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Jonathan, for that. Thank you so much for that very informative presentation. If you want to help me, then I've got a few questions here for you, if you're on the line. From Alex, could you give a few details about a drafting view? So you covered that right at the end. Can you add parts or views from the model to a drafting view? Jonathan, over to you.
You can hear me, Iqbal?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Oh,
cool.
Sorry, perfect. My mic was on mute.
Sorry.
Can you add a few details about a drafting view, please? Can you add parts views from the model to a drafting view? Yes, you can. I'm not entirely clear on your view. So a drafting view does show anything that you model in 3D will appear in that. But if you edit anything in that view, so you can hide different objects in that view. So for example, if I go into my drafting view here, if I in fact go in and start hiding some objects here, so I'm going to select all of these pieces of furniture, I'm just going to hide them EH. They will only hide in that particular view. But if I go back into my ground floor plan, you can see those objects still exist. So it can be view specific, yes, if that answers your question.
Yep, okay, so it's very interesting, the difference between the model view and the drafting view, I think, is a lot of people are very interested in what you can do in both. But another question, actually, different from there, from Eleanor, is there any way you can change the color of trees in the shaded style?
Yeah, so there's a couple of ways. So it depends on what trees you're using, if you've created your own family, or if in fact you've downloaded ones, or you're using the out-of-the-box ones. So in the Manage tab from the Object Styles, if you go down to Planting, in your Object Styles, Model Objects, down to your planting and just go to your line pattern and material. So where it says material, you'll actually go into your library, and then if you just create a new material with the color of the tree that you want, so if it's just a green color or a blank color, you just create that in there, and then in your shaded view that will appear as your three objects as well. Alternatively, you can in fact just open up a tree family. So I can go into my 3D view, just right click, and if I just go to edit family, I can then go into this particular family and just edit how this particular element appears as well. So this one does have a material that I created just called tree concept, and that was just a gray with the transparency turned down. So yes, there are two ways that you can do that.
Yeah, and that is that the shaded view as well as being when you change the other different views, or is that any view, any of those options when you change the material?
So that's the only shaded view. If you if your appearance tab is left blank in your materials library, then it will only pull in whatever color you've put in there. But in fact, if it's a realistic view, you can add in an image that only appears in a realistic view but won't appear in a shaded view.
Oh, okay, great. Can you just re-elaborate on your approach to duplicating the levels?
Duplicating.
I think refers to Sophie is asking about duplicating the levels, and maybe to do with the elevation view, perhaps.
Sorry, I'll just.
If you can help me just understand that, Sophie, if you could just put a bit more details in there for us, what you mean by that question.
Perfect.
Oh, to do with creating a drafting level 1.
Oh yes, just to explain that a bit more, and the purpose of that is you're not actually creating another floor level. It's just another version of that particular view. And the reason you would do that, I'm just going to close everything here. I'm going to close this. I will show you the purpose now. So if I in fact open up, so these are in fact the same. Sorry, I should have renamed these. So what I'm going to do, just going to rename this one. I know that is my ground floor. So your drafting view will not go onto a sheet. That's only for you, your drawing purpose essentially. And it's kind of the rough and ready. It's where everything is turned on essentially. So here we have ground floor and ground floor drafting. So WT. So the one that goes onto the sheet is, you know, your nice clean one with your dimensions on it. And the thing with that is you only place dimensions and notation in the one that's going to go onto sheets, because they are view specific. And the drafting one, if I start placing new walls in here, or if I in fact hide elements in my drafting view, or I may have more elements turned on in this particular view. So if I go in here and if I say, for example, unhide everything in here, it's going to unhide everything. But if on my sheet, if I didn't want to show something on my sheet, I could just hide these, only hide in that particular view. And that's why it's good to work with a drafting view, which is also, I suppose, a rough view that only you will see. It won't be seen by the client.
Yeah, perfect. So there's a difference between the drafting and the other ones and the other plans, which is very useful to understand. I've got, sorry, Sophie's just carrying on. Can you go through how you would create a legend for wall infill hatches, i.e. if you're working with existing context to remain, which would read different hatches?
If you're, so if your wall types had different hatches, leave that one with me. I don't, there's probably a bit of explaining into it, but
Yeah,
leave that one with me, and
a bit more detailed
we'll
with that
get
one,
back to you on that
Sophie.
one.
We'll get back to you on
Exactly.
that one,
Yeah.
no problem. So quickly, just to let you guys know, this webinar is being recorded, so you will be able to see this afterwards once we publish it, upload it out to our YouTube channel. So we'll send you out notification when that happens. Okay, so a question from Martin. Can you add hyperlinks in the web address you put in your drawing sheet with your logo?
I'm fairly sure you can put in hyperlinks, and then I suppose it's if you're outputting that to a PDF, it will depend on your PDF printer or whatever you're using, if it interprets that as a hyperlink or not.
Yeah, perfect. We've got a question from Shuruti. Can some of these principles be applied to landscape related projects?
Entirely, yes. You can apply all of your color control, your line weights, and your shading as well.
So just Sean wants to know a bit more about the drafting and the model views. Just to clarify, when we use the word drafting, um, is this is basically the actual Revit drafting view, isn't it? It's not. Is that a model view or is it an actual Revit drafting view? It's kind of people getting confused between
It's an
both.
actual model view. It's a cut floor plan of your view.
Okay. Yep.
It's a duplication of the floor level or of the level that you're already using as a plan.
I see. Yep. Um, so we've got a question from Chris, who does a lot of work with existing buildings. So the walls are never straight. What's the best way to create the existing surrounding context or elements of the retained building? So he works with in real life situations where the walls are kind of not straight. It's very hard to work with a model when you're working with existing buildings.
In my experience, if you have a surveyor's drawing, it's always good to start from that. If that's CAD or if they have a Revit file, in most cases, in a lot of cases, it's going to be a CAD file version of a surveying drawing. So if you have that, you can in fact just trace over those lines. So whether they're straight or whether they're not straight, as long as you're tracing over what's being surveyed, it's the most accurate level of modeling. Or you can go one step further and in fact have a laser scan version of that and then import that into Revit and actually trace over that inside Revit as well.
That's true. Yeah. So definitely, you've got to use another piece of equipment, or just use the surveyor's drawing. Best way to make you more accurate. So that's true.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I think we had one more, sorry, one or two more, and then we'll probably have to call it quits. Can you have the shadow from the whole build projected onto the plan rather than the cut building? From Claire, I'm just thinking what that might mean. So
Oh,
talking about the shadowing that you've got in
oh,
your.
I understand. Yes, that will in fact only appear in your roof plan as long as you haven't hidden the elements or you haven't. Yes, it won't work in the cut section. I understand what you're saying there.
Okay. Let me know if that's okay, Claire. I think everybody else is just very happy to have these sorts of informations. Very hard to know this on your own. It comes through a lot of practice and patience to figuring out what looks best. So it's very good to hear this from you, Jonathan, today. I think everybody's quite impressed with this. Another questions quickly before we carry on. Sorry, you're a busy man today. So Sophie, again, referring to a previous question, so regarding the existing walls that Chris had talked about, would you say, when you say trace, you're referring to the 2D detail lines or the actual 3D walls? So it depends what information you get from your.
So when you import a CAD file, so I'm just going to go into site plan or go into my site drafting plan, I can actually import a CAD plan in here. And by tracing, I mean that you are snapping to an actual CAD file. So if I got one quick created here.
All right, so just bringing in a 2D drawing,
Just
and
bringing in the
we're using that to model up. Yeah.
Exactly. Let's say this is a surveyor's drawing that I'm linking in. I'm just going to place that. So that's only exists in 2D. Then if I just select my wall, and this is what I mean by tracing, you're going to pick lines. And as you pick the lines, it highlights. So you know that the wall is being placed exactly on top of that CAD line.
So if you refer to, you're creating actual 3D walls over the 2D lines that you've got from your imported CAD. Yeah.
Yes,
Perfect.
that's correct.
Great. Last question, and then we'll probably leave it there. Oh, another one. Can you get corner bifold doors from the Revit library? I don't think I've seen bifold doors in the Revit library.
No, I don't think there are. The MBS website does have some manufacturers that produce bifold doors. I've got them from before.
Yeah.
That's one place you could look for them.
Yeah, so it definitely has to be elsewhere. You might have to find them. A BIM object again is another great library.
As you said, alternatively, I personally would probably use the curtain wall tool just because I think it's quite dynamic in terms of what you can do with it. I suppose it depends, are you outputting that then onto a sheet for a window schedule, which can also be done even with a curtain wall. So yeah, you can do it both ways, to download or create from curtain wall.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so yep, So one last question. Sorry, Jonathan, I keep piling them on here.
No problem.
When we model floors in the landscape, in landscape designing projects, we need to add levels to the floors to demonstrate the change in landscape. When we do this, the hatches on the floor get distorted. Is there a way to resolve this? Shruti, probably we're going to have to look into that for you. Probably have to look at in particular to
I think
your
so. Yeah, it's
models.
quite a specific
Yeah.
question, but yeah, let us get back to you on that one. But that's a
Yeah.
very good question.
We'll send you an email. We can talk through that in more detail, Shruti. So thanks very much for all your questions. A lot of interested people and very informative, as people are saying here. So fantastic. Just to let you know, we've got a few future events there, and I think we've posted 1 or 2 posts in the chat section to go to. First of all, next week, September 23rd at 11 a.m. We've got another top 10 tips webinar, Introduction to InfraWorks. So again, Jonathan, he'll provide you with an introduction to InfraWorks, focusing on using it to create topographical models to show site context, etc., road layouts, paths and bridges, and how to collaborate with Civil 3D, Recut Pro, Revit, and use Revit with those, etc. And also after that, going on, we've got another webinar, what's new in Revit 2021. So it'll tell you, cover all the latest updates in that. And again, going into October, the end of October, we've got webinar, Introduction to Navisworks for Construction Collaboration. And Jonathan will cover Navisworks features, creating 4D videos in the construction process, detecting clashes between disciplines, and quality checking your BIM model. So very informative, a couple of weeks going on in the next couple of weeks. Please do look at our events page, our news page on our website, and sign up to the register for those. Thanks very much, Jonathan. Again, very, very good to have you here today. And we'll probably see you next week. Hope to see you guys next week. I think we'll sign off there. Thanks very much.
Perfect. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
You too. Bye now.